Welcome, everyone. I'm Patrice, and this is Navigating the Journey, episode 14, Don't Lose Sight Because the Vision Changes. I typically like to start my podcast with a story, quote, or experience. I believe relatability is the best foundation for motivation and inspiration. Today's episode is centered around the story of an individual who had a vision to obtain the highest degree in education, move forward with a 6-digit salary, and continue to expand a learning intervention program they assisted in creating for an affluent school district. Life had a different path in mind that required the initial vision to change, but the determination to believe in a purpose and not lose sight opened doors unimaginable. Who better to go into more depth about this story than the main character? I'm honored to be joined today by Dr. Sheena Dean, who happens to also be one of my sisters. Welcome, sister, and thank you for agreeing to be a part of today's episode.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, sister.
So I believe your journey is a great example for today's topic, and I think it can really serve as an inspiration for others. So tell us more about yourself and the vision you had that led you to embark on your doctorate degree.
Well, my husband, Wes, and I have 4 children. Jeremiah is 15. Adeline will be 5 on Monday. Samuel just turned 2 on Tuesday. And Solomon is 3. So my husband is in medical school. When I first met him, we were teachers. And he told me, he was like, I'm going to go to medical school. And I was like, okay. So, I couldn't really wrap my head around it because we were both teaching at the time. But the time had come and my husband was ready to go to medical school. And I thought, okay, well, I'll get my doctorate too. Let's get our doctorates together. This will be fun. So we started our programs together. But we knew with medical school, there came a lot of relocating. So I wanted to get my doctorate so that I wasn't boxed in, knowing that I was going to have to move and start a new job every time we picked up and had to relocate. I just didn't want to be stuck. So I knew if I had my doctorate, then I would have plenty of options, and I could just pretty much choose and do whatever I wanted to do.
So that's great insight in regards to your initial vision and really the why behind it, wanting to maintain that flexibility and remain agile and be able to adjust and adapt based off of whatever moves that medical school brought. So now, as you think about that and kind of what you explained to us around your initial vision, when did you realize your path was changing and going in a different direction than you had envisioned?
I knew my path was changing when my husband said to me, I think it would probably be best if you stayed at home with the children during this time of transition. Medical school is going to really require a lot out of both of us. And it's going to be tough. So, I think you should stay at home, just support the kids and their needs and supporting him and his needs. And I said no. Absolutely not. I do not want to stay at home. I do not want to move. I didn't want to do any of those things. And really, at the end of the day, it was because I was wrapped up in my job. My identity was wrapped up in my job. And I literally had to have a conversation with God and ask him, Lord, is this the path that you are laying before me? And my child, yes. Get in there and pack them boxes and let's go. So, I really was reluctant in the beginning, and it was hard. It really was hard. You're talking about moving away from all of your friends, moving away from your family, leaving behind a house that, you and your husband built together. This was the home we brought Adeline home to. Leaving our jobs, so it was us picking up and moving from the known to really the unknown. And we really didn't know what we was getting into, what we were signing up for. And we had no family or friends in Knoxville when we first moved there.
So those are some really good call outs. I think a lot of times when a vision starts to change and the path in the direction you thought you initially were going to go starts to shift, I can't think of too many people that get super excited about it unless it's a path that's leading to something that's visibly going to be way more rewarding. But as you walk from the known to the unknown, that can be extremely scary. And it can also be stressful. And like you said, there can be some resistance to the change because initially you're starting off with one thing in mind and then everything kind of starts to change and shift and go into a different direction. And so I think what you shared about not only you realizing, hey, this is what's going on and this is how I knew the path was starting to change, but also this is how I felt after realizing that. I think those are all really good call outs, and they're very realistic to what I think a lot of people feel as their vision in life starts to change and they kind of notice, okay, maybe this isn't the direction that I'm going to be led to go into. Another thing that I think I've realized is so many times people lose sight of their vision once it's not as clear or it begins to challenge them to think beyond their initial belief. So thinking about that, how were you able to shift your focus from what was in front of you to what other paths were around you?
I think one thing that kind of made my shift different than most, I guess, is I wasn't still in the same environment. I was literally picking up and moving to a different environment. And so I literally had to be present where my feet were. And it was in that moment I knew I needed to adjust and adapt. It didn't mean I had to let go of everything I knew and let go of, who I was or what I was doing on a daily basis, which was changing lives of children. I just had to figure out how to take that and apply it to my current situation that I was in. And that is how homeschooling our toddlers came about. By the time we moved to Knoxville, we had Adeline and Solomon as toddlers. And Wes would constantly say to me, like, Sheena, this is embedded in you. Like, this is what you do. It's your schedule. You literally can make it what you want it to be. And I kind of took that and ran with it. And I started teaching our children. I started pouring into them everything I knew. Everything I had, I was giving to them. And I do have to take a moment and just shout out Marianne and Karen. They were my office mates at Central Office. And I took that job. Initially, I was hired to be the secondary specialist for RTI, but man, I was supporting elementary schools and I did not know how to do that. My background is secondary. I knew nothing about elementary, and they literally walked me through everything I needed to know. The reading aspect. I was also over math. And so little did I know that was God preparing me for staying at home with my children and being able to teach them. And there's just something special about being able to pour into your own children and actually see them practice or do or tell someone what you have shown them or taught them. It is training your child, right? And so I'm giving them all of these pieces and nuggets that I know. It's a beautiful thing when you're watching your own children grow up and learn and know things that you have taught them yourself.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And I think you used two really powerful words, adjust and adapt. I think those are extremely important when you talk about not losing sight and being able to still see the vision. It's great that you were able to leverage your resources and still be able to tap into some of the things that you learned on the initial part of the journey when you were going down the path that you thought was going to be where you ended. I think it's great you were able to kind of go back and grab some of those things and apply it to where your journey is now. And so as we talk about, or we think about where your journey is now, can you talk a little bit about where that shift in vision has taken you?
In homeschooling our children, I started the journey of trying to find a curriculum that I could use with them. And honestly, that process was very overwhelming for me. There were so many different choices. There were so many detailed curriculums. These are the materials you need to get. Here's the lesson plan. And I really was overwhelmed as an educator myself. And I thought, man, I just really need somebody to tell me, like, hey, here's what your children need to be learning. And like, this is the skill. And here's what they should know by the end of it. and let's be done. And so that is how I decided, or why I decided to write my curriculum, Simple Activities Helping Moms. And I've highlighted to the far left the acronym Stay at Home Moms, because I thought I have 3 toddlers that I have to teach at the same time. And I really need something very simple that I can pick up, glance at it. Okay, here, boom, here's what we're learning today. This is what you need to know by the end of the unit, and let's move on. And so that's what I had in mind when I wrote my curriculum. I wanted all of my units to be 1-pagers. I wanted to tell you, here's the skill we're going to be learning. Here's the developmental milestone that we're going to be addressing. And here are some resources you can use, and here are some games and activities you can play. And I literally just write a paragraph and say, I'm just kind of talking to the parents, like, this is the skill, this is what you can do, here's some things you can try. And then at the end of every unit, I have a field trip, which is very practical. These are things you would do, on a daily basis, regardless. You're going to go to the grocery store, or you're going to go to a restaurant. And so I just kind of embed those throughout the units, which I think are like little fun pieces to do or experiences to have with your children. And it is an interactive curriculum. It's meant to be downloaded, and there are a lot of hyperlinks. I hyperlink you to resources. There's a hyperlink of a video of my children learning the skill that I'm asking you to teach your children. And so it's very much so a guideline, really. It's not a step-by-step lesson plan. It's not gather these resources. I'm really encouraging you, hey, like, look around your home. What are some things you already have at your fingertips that you can use to teach your children this skill?
Awesome. I know at the beginning I mentioned, this vision leading into something unimaginable. And as someone that's been along for the journey and the ride, I can tell you this is outstanding. I'm super proud of you, super happy for you. Congratulations on the curriculum. And for my listeners, I also want to call out the fact that I know there are so many times along the journey where we have a particular path in mind with expected outcomes, and the clarity begins to change. And I think today, your story has really exemplified what that can look like, but what it can also lead to. And so in those moments where we become so set on the vision, and I know we will squint and strain and stare until we've completely lost sight. But, once this happens, it's really important that we don't lose sight of the path that we're focused on, and that we can continue to see the things that are being revealed amongst the other paths around us. And I think your story shows how you did a really great job of that, and what can come when you are able to stay focused on those things. So after today's episode and hearing firsthand the power of never losing sight, challenge yourself to take a step back and to not only focus on the paths directly in front of you, but those that are also in your peripheral view. Simple Activities Helping Moms is now available for ages 3 through 5. You can find the link to purchase and get more insight on the curriculum in this episode's description. Be sure to follow Jazz Homebound Academy and Navigating the Journey on Instagram and Facebook, and share with at least one person. And before we depart, remember, as you navigate, it's okay to stumble over the blocks and step on the stones. Those are temporary detours, and your main road is just ahead.
It's just ahead.
Thanks, sister.